Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with the DRF race of the day for Saturday, June 25th. We're going out to Thistledown in Ohio, and the race of the day is race number 11 out there. It is the Grade 3 Ohio Derby. 8 3-year-olds are going to go a mile and an eighth on the main track for a $500,000 purse included among the 8. 3 Kentucky Derby also-rans. Here's that field of 8 right now. It's a pretty good one. Before we get into the handicapping, though, scan that QR code that you see on your screen right now, and you can view the past performances for this race on your mobile device. The free Formulator PPs will also be available at the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Pretty good field here for the Grade 3 Ohio Derby. As you can see from the morning line of the race, Tawny Port, one of those Derby also-rans, is a very, very slight 3-1 favorite on the morning line. He's only slightly favored over the number 5, White Abario, at 7-2. You also have Ethereal Road coming off of a career best performance on Preakness weekend down at Pimlico. He's 4-1 on the line. Down towards the rail, Baris, a New York bred, shipping in here for trainer Mike Maker, 9-2 down on the rail. And then you have, a little bit of an enigma on the outside in Classic Causeway. He also ran in the Kentucky Derby. He's 6-1 on the line. He's got a lot of speed from the outside post, and he's looking to rebound off of 2 pretty poor performances. So we'll see if he's able to do that. This will be his first start for trainer Kenny McPeak. And according to the Timeform US pace projector, which we'll look at right now, Classic Causeway, he's just the speed of this race. And that's anybody who's seen this horse run, that pace projector is pretty difficult to argue with. This is a fast horse. They like to use his speed in his races. That is something that he did not get to do in that Kentucky Derby, which had fast early fractions, and he got bumped at the start to wind up, sort of back off the pace in there. That's not how he wants to go. His prior start is a little bit more concerning. It was the Florida Derby, the Grade 1 over this distance. He did not show up at all that day. So again, you're talking about a horse with a lot of speed and a lot of talent who's coming into this race off of 2 very disappointing performances and trying to rebound, but he should make the early lead in here, even breaking from the outside post. Pineapple Man, the 6, is also expected to be up close on that pace projector. He is a horse who does have a good amount of speed, and I do think they will use it here. He's a stablemate of that number 1, Baris. And Baris is more of a horse who likes to, doesn't have a ton of speed and likes to make late runs through the stretch. Pineapple Man, they have different owners here, but I wonder if he's just not in here to ensure that this pace goes a little bit for his stablemate. Pineapple Man, if nothing else, looks like he's in pretty tough here. Let's get into the handicapping of this race, though. It's a pretty good field. Baris, as we've already mentioned, he's a New York bred. He's a pretty good one. He won the first 3 starts of his career. He really improved when they came back off the layoff with him this year as a 3-year-old to win a couple of stakes races versus his fellow state breds. But he ran, solid figures in those races. And, his calling card right from the start, even when he won his only start as a 2-year-old, which was last May at Belmont Park going 5 furlongs. This horse never has shown a lot of speed in his races, but he's really game. He stays on really, really gamely through the stretch. Late to get up to win that career debut as a 2-year-old. Late to get up in the Rego Park off of the layoff this year. Late to get up to win the Gander, to make it 3 for 3 the first time they stretched him out to the 1-turn mile there at Aqueduct. And then they, took a little bit of a shot with this horse. They bumped him up into the Grade 2 Wood Memorial over this distance at Aqueduct, around 2 turns. And listen, he wound up finishing 5th that day. He actually ran okay in that race. Obviously, that was a very strong prep race for the Kentucky Derby. Mo Donegal is now your Belmont Stakes winner. The runner-up early voting is now your Preakness winner. Skippy Longstocking, who was 3rd in that race. I think it was 5th in the Preakness, 3rd in the Belmont. I mean, that was a good field. It came back with a pretty solid figure, and Baris ran okay in that race. He was always stuck on the outside. He could never get over to save any ground. Took a little bit of a run at early voting on the lead around the 2nd turn. Was no match for that horse. And got a little bit tired at the end. Couldn't last for 4th in there and wound up settling for 5th. But in all, it wasn't a bad performance. 89 buyer speed figure was fine for him. He was much more disappointed when they came back with him 2 weeks later in another New York bred race. Cut him back to 6.5 furlongs, and he just didn't run well. Didn't get out of the gate that well in that race. Just chased the pace the entire way. Never could make up any ground on the leaders in there, and didn't really have much of a finish. Very disappointing at 1-5 the last time we saw him. Probably a good sign that this is the race that he turns up in off of that disappointing effort, though. Maker's going to stretch him right back out in here. I do think this horse is pretty good. He will have Lasix on for the first time in this race. I guess the only problem that I have with him in here is I don't think that 9-2 is a very attractive price on the morning line. He's going to have to improve to beat this field. I would want more than that if I was going to bet him. The number 2 is Brigadier General. He's the longest shot on the board on the morning line. I don't really know what to say about this horse. He has certainly improved a little bit this year as a 3-year-old. I wasn't a fan of his last year at 2. He finally got the maiden win 2 starts back in career start number 7. Paired up his career best 85 Beyer winning that day. He likes to race up close to the pace. I don't know that that's necessarily going to help him in here because he's not as fast as Classic Causeway is. You have Pineapple Man, who's probably going to show speed. White Abarrio, who is going to be one of the favorites in here, is also a horse who likes to race up close. I don't know. I just didn't necessarily see Brigadier General getting the right trip in here. And, he's just a horse who has to improve. He's going to have to catch some breaks if he's going to win this race. And I just didn't really see that happening. But he's going to be a good price if you like him. The number 3 is Droppin' G's, another horse who's going to be a longer price in here. Only made 2 starts so far in his career on dirt. And he wasn't close to winning either one of those races. Now, they were pretty good fields. The first of those 2 back at Churchill over a sloppy track. He bumped into Howling Time, who wired that field with a 90 Beyer. This horse chased Howling Time, was no match, got tired in the stretch, finished 3rd, beaten 7th Lakes. Last time they stepped him up into the grade 3 mat win over fast dirt. Another good field, Cyberknife, Howling Time in there. Rattle and Roll was 3rd. This horse just never really got involved, was no factor that day. This race does not offer any class relief at all for him. I just didn't really see him making much of an impact in here, but he's another horse who's going to be a big price if you like him. The 4, Ethereal Road, sort of has some things to recommend him in this race. He does want to sort of sit and make one run from off the pace, and he might have something to run at in here. And he just feels like a horse who's maybe been getting better all along for trainer D. Wayne Lucas, and a horse who really feels like he took a step forward in his most recent start, which we'll look at right now. This is the Sir Barn. Again, it's on Preakness weekend at Pimlico, going a mile and a 16th. And you listen, this was a day at Pimlico where speed was doing very good on the main track. Ethereal Road is not that kind of horse, so he was back off the pace. He was able to save a lot of ground under Luis Saez, and he made a strong, wide run around the second turn. And you see him, he took over at the top of the stretch, drove away from that field, much the best at the end. 90 Beyer speed figure is a new top for this horse. I can't say that I necessarily loved his races, prior to that, as they had him on the Kentucky Derby trail there for a while. But, listen, he did run really well when he broke his maiden, overcoming a really poor start to win that day. I didn't love his Rebel. He was beaten less than a length that day. I just didn't love his performance because it's a race he certainly could have won, and he was defeated by a 75-1 shot. But listen, after that, his Bluegrass wasn't terrible. He was never a real factor in there, but that wasn't a terrible performance. His Lexington wasn't a terrible performance, and he took a big step forward last time. Might have some pace to run at here, too. Ethereal Road's a player in this race. White Abarrio is the 5, already a grade 1 winner. Got off to just a real good start to his career, winning 4 of the first 5 starts. The only loss when they took him to Churchill Downs as a 2-year-old. Took him, tried to rate him off the pace that day, put him over behind horses. I don't think it really worked out. He didn't run terribly that day. Finished behind Classic Causeway in 3rd. But that just wasn't his strongest performance when they tried a different running style with him. His first 2 starts this year, they went back to letting him use his speed, and they put him right up close to the pace in those races. And that includes this grade 1 win here over the 9 furlong distance that we'll look at right now, the Florida Derby at Gulfstream Park. They rode him out of the gate for position. They got him right up close. And he just had a really good trip tracking the leaders, came forward around the second turn, and you see him just really gamely overpowering the leaders in mid-stretch, and he kept on to the finish there, getting clear. It felt like the 9 furlongs was no problem for him. He's got a really nice burst of acceleration when his rider asks him for it. I like that about him. He's earned Beyers of 97 and 96 in his first 2 starts this year as a 3-year-old. And those races earned him into his spot in the Kentucky Derby where, listen, the Derby was one of those races, when I watched it back, where I didn't see a ton of tough trips in the race. I don't think White Abarrio got a particularly good trip in that race, and I'm not going to blame it all on Tyler Gaffalione because I understand what he was doing there. White Abarrio is a horse who wants to be forward in his races, and they tried to go forward. It looked like Gaffalione was trying to get this horse to show speed early, but that pace was really fast. So he got outpaced a little bit in there. He got caught 4 wide around the first turn. He could never get over through the stretch. He was very, very wide around the second turn trying to make a run. He just couldn't reach contention, and he got tired in the stretch. To me, that was a brutal trip for this horse. He's going to be more forward in here. It's a shorter field. They're probably not going to go as fast. He has Lasix on for this race. I think there's a lot to like about this horse, and I think he's going to be tough in the Ohio Derby. Pineapple Man's the 6, another New York bred for Mike Maker. Again, I don't know if he's entered here just to show some speed for his stablemate, but it certainly could be the case. He has improved with every start so far but he's never been this distance. He's never run a race that's going to make him really competitive in here. And he just has to improve a lot. He's going to have to do it while up on the pace with some really good horses. Number 7 is Tawny Port. He's your morning line favorite. I'm on record as being a big fan of this horse. 3 of his 6 starts so far have come on the all-weather at Turfway Park. He ran well in all three of those races. He clearly handles that surface. But he's also pretty good on dirt. You have his dirt debut, which came in a really, really tough Risen Star back in February at Fairgrounds. And this is a horse who did not get a very good trip in the race. The pace wasn't fast. He got caught over behind horses coming to the stretch, shuffled back out of position to last, and basically lost all chance at that point. I actually felt like he ran deceptively well to finish 5th that day. He was back to the main track to dirt a couple of starts later in the Grade 3 Lexington at Keeneland, going a mile and a 16th. And we'll look at the replay of that race right now. This is on 2 weeks rest as they tried to get points to get this horse into the Derby, and points they did get. Tawny Port was much the best in this race. Used his speed a little bit, just wanted to get forward with him, it looked like in there. He did get forward. He was always on the outside, but he was never too far away from the pace. And he comes after it very gamely through the stretcher. You see him taking over this race inside the final furlong or so, and he's just going to get clear at the end. I thought this was a good performance from him. He had earned a 90 buyer on synthetic 1 start prior to this, 89 there. They ran him back in the Kentucky Derby as well. All in all, I thought he ran really well in Derby. He got a trip in that race that really worked out for him. A really good ride from Ricardo Santana. Got this horse into contention through the stretch of that race. He actually had a real shot at a big piece of that Kentucky Derby at an unbelievably huge price. He was basically the same price as the winner, Rich Strike, in there. Couldn't quite get there. Weakened very late stages of that race and settled for 7th, beaten less than 5 lengths, though he ran fine in the Derby. I'm a fan of this horse. Irad Ortiz is going to come in to ride him here. I definitely feel like he's one of the major players in this race. I don't know that I think he deserves to be the favorite on the morning line, but I think Tawny Port, I think he can win this race, and I think he can win some races, some pretty nice races going forward also for these connections. I think this horse is pretty good. Number 8 is Classic Causeway, 6-1 on the line. He's the wild card of the race here. He was really good right from the start of his career when he earned that 90 buyer break-in his maiden at Saratoga last September. They bumped him right up into some tougher races. I thought he ran well in the Breeders' Futurity. I thought he ran well in the Kentucky Jockey Club to end his 3-year-old campaign. Didn't win either of those, but I thought he ran well in both of those races. He came back with 2 really easy wins along the Derby Trail earlier this year at Tampa. 2 races where he was just the main speed. They weren't great fields. He had no trouble making the pace in those races, and he just had plenty left through the stretch to kick away from those horses. I really thought he looked good winning both of those races, though. They stepped him up and stretched him out to this distance in that Florida Derby that White Abarrio won. And Classic Causeway was terrible in that race. I don't know what happened in there. He showed his speed. He did take a little pressure up on the pace, but he was completely empty still on the backstretch of that race. And Irad Ortiz just basically wrapped him up. Knew he didn't have anything underneath him and just let him drop right back out of contention. It almost felt like something was wrong with him there. His connections weren't sure if they were going to press on to the Derby with him. Ultimately, pretty late in the game, they decided they would run him in the Derby, and run him in the Derby they did. And nothing really went right for him that day. I don't think the Florida Derby is a hard race to excuse. I don't think you want to hold the Kentucky Derby against him too much. He got bumped at the start. He wound up back off the pace, which is not where he wants to be. He tried to drop over there on the first turn. He was always in and among horses. He got into heavy traffic around the second turn and just shuffled right out. I don't think he was going anywhere anyway, but this horse had a no chance trip in that race. And I just feel like you want to put a line through it. He's a lot better than that. He's regrouped since then. They come back in this race. He looks like the main speed, which makes him super dangerous in here. He gets a trainer change for this race to trainer Kenny McPeak, who doesn't have great numbers off of trainer changes. You can look that up in Formulator. The numbers aren't great, but I think this horse is okay, and he's just going to be on the lead in this race. So at 6-1, I think 6-1 on the morning line is actually a very fair price on Classic Causeway, and I can easily see him winning this race. I thought about putting them on top. I ultimately did not put him on top. You can get the picks up there right now. I do think Classic Causeway is very dangerous on the lead, but I put him second, and I put White Abarrio on top just because I liked his prior 2 races off the layoff as a newly turned 3-year-old, and I just don't like the trip or ride that he got in the Kentucky Derby last time. I think I just feel that's the kind of race you want to give him a pass for with things not working out. He has the tactical speed here to get a much better trip in this race right up close to the pace. And we'll see if he goes favorite. As far as the morning line is concerned, he's not going to be the favorite in here, and if he's not, I think you could make a strong case that he just might be a little bit better than some of his rivals in this race. I took White Barrio in the Saturday DRF race of the day. It's a good one, the Ohio Derby, a grade 3 out there in Ohio. The approximate post time is 5:35 Eastern time. Good luck.